the Celtic year begins with the season of Samhain. It begins with darkness. And that's not accidental. It begins with darkness because the Celtic people and the pre-Celtic people understood that all life is birthed out of darkness, that chaos comes before order, and that rebirth comes after death. And that, so it starts at Samhain. It starts in this place which is really, really dark, which is very unusual. And it's certainly very countercultural in our culture right now, or has been for many, many times. So just learning how to be in that is a huge place, is a huge step. So we go from Samhain, which invites us to let go, to surrender, down to the deepest darkness of winter solstice, where we get the gift of receptivity. Then we move back out into the light, that Imbolc, Lo Elibrida, and then we move towards the spring equinox, and then we come to the bright half of the year, which is Bealtaine. And Bealtaine is the beginning of the summer season. And we go through Bealtaine, which is blossoming, into ripening, into harvesting, and into breathing out. And we come right back to Samhain. And what's so amazing is that it isn't just a circle, it's actually a spiral, because every time we get back around the cycle, we have changed and grown, and we're either going in a wider spiral or a narrower spiral, but we will never be in the same place. And the beautiful thing about Samhain is that 1 year ends, and there are 3 days and 3 nights before the next year begins. And those 3 days and 3 nights are a liminal time, time out of time. And when we start the next round, we are not the same. Over to you, Mary.
Yeah, so I'll take you into Samhain. Well, maybe before that, let me tell you about how I encountered this teaching. I mean, it came just after we did the Ireland-Iceland, Kathy, it was following my father's death, and my dad died in 2011. And I remember as he was passing, I was down in the Hazelwood in Sligo. I'm from Sligo, and I was in the hospice, and I was deeply connected to him and his soul, and I was trying to find him. He was a man who walked the land in prayer, and I couldn't find him. He had gone unconscious, and I went out to the Hazelwood, and I sat among the hazel trees, and I got this sense of him leaving, and for the first time in my life, a connection to Ireland, to the land of Ireland. I had never felt connected, even though I was a farmer's daughter. And I asked him for help, and within I think 2 weeks, I was at a talk Dolores was giving, and she talked about a dream she had, and I'd had a similar dream, and I thought, this is my teacher. And Dolores, I'll never forget the day you said, because I was in deep, deep Samhain, but the day you said, the Celts believe that everything starts in the darkness, and that was it. I was gone. I was in.
We live in a culture that is terrified of death. And this is one of the main gifts of the Cailleach and the gift of Samhain, is that in order for us to become reborn, we must die. We go through the death phase. It's dark, it's dreary, it's challenging, it's scary. But when we get to that moment of the winter solstice, which is about surrender, down, 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 there's the tiniest light that comes. And that light that comes is like the beginning of the next cycle of rebirth. But we live in a culture that is so afraid of death, does not believe in rebirth. And I think that's one of the great gifts of the Celtic calendar, the great gift of the earlier people of not only this country, but many countries, because all the primal people understood that we are completely connected with the earth. And the cycles of the earth are contained in our lives, and our lives are connected with the cycles of the life of the earth. So one of the gifts of getting back in contact with the wisdom of this tradition, and I often say to people that the Celtic calendar is like a repository of the whole wisdom system of this ancient culture of this land. And it's not only Celtic, it's pre-Celtic. And so when you understand the different aspects of the wheel, you have a huge, you've got a huge insight into the mindset of the people who live their lives by this way. They didn't just pull it out of the air. It was reflecting their experience of life. It was reflecting their experience of how the seasons move, how they were connected not only to the earth but to the solar systems. They were totally aware of the cosmos. And like one of the things I've noticed in lockdown, which is quite beautiful, is the number of people who say to me, "Did you see the moon?" People who'd never have noticed the moon before, but something has happened, and there's a way that we are beginning to go back to more fundamental understandings of who we are.
I just feel that the sovereignty piece is so important for me. Sovereignty is that I am the highest power, I'm the highest authority in my life. And I think that's a big piece for in this post-truth world. And how the more I'm in my sovereignty, the more I'm connected to that soul, to my roots, to the depth of myself. And therefore, my life is an expression of that. And the more sovereign I become, actually, the more I can be in generous relationship with everything and everyone around me. That's my experience of it. And I'm reminded of the great Meister Eckhart, who says that the soul learns by subtraction, not by.
Mhm.
And that sense of as I drop and shed, I get closer in, and that's a very feminine thing to do.
Yes.
um, and so sovereignty is another gift, a great gift. And I think the other great gift of Samhain at now is acknowledging Samhain right now is, as John Moriarty says, or not, yeah, the great John Moriarty
Mhm.
said that like the we're returning to the sanctity of integration and inclusion as distinct from the sanctity which we had before of repression and exclusion. And that's, I think, really important, that when we enter sound, we start to embody the darkness, and we start to include the feminine, and we include the slowness, and we include, doing things in a way that our contemporary modern world has forgotten about, since the Enlightenment and even before that. And I think it's really important to know we're not going back to try and be the Celts or the
No,
pre-Celts.
not at all.
What we want is to go back and include where we didn't include, we transcended, but we didn't include, and bring it in and weave it in so we can evolve into a new way of being in the world, which brings, integrates, and includes, as opposed to excludes and represses.